This is The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholoc, and welcome to the PR Training Lab. This is the episode where you get to know me a little better, you get to know my process better, because I make a custom training plan right here live on the show for a runner just like you. If you would like to enter to win a free training plan that I make for you, the first step is to write an Apple Podcast review. These are so important to the longevity of the show, our reach, and I really need a few more. So please go ahead and write an Apple Podcast review and then head to theplantedrunner.com/PR lab. As you might be able to hear in my voice, I have been a little under the weather lately, but I probably sound worse than I feel. So I'm going ahead and making this episode for you. And if you would like to follow along with the questions that I ask each runner, I put them in the show notes and I use them to get to know the runner a little bit better so I can make a custom training plan. Our winner today is Destinee, and she has got a half marathon. So let's check out what she wrote on her entry form and let's make a plan for her. So Destinee is 33 years old, and she found out about the Planted Runner on the Planted Runner podcast. I love to hear that. Okay, what is the date of your race? May 30th, 2026. So as I record this, it's January. You're probably listening in February. This is the perfect time to get a plan for your May race, whether it's a half marathon or a marathon. That is when we start to get specific in your training to lead up to your goal race. All right, what half marathon is Destinee training for? EMC DAM to DSM Half Marathon. Okay, that is a lot of letters. What the heck is that? I have to admit, I have to look this one up. And it turns out that it is one of the most iconic half marathons in the state of Iowa. Okay, let's see what it says. Likely the most iconic route in all of Iowa, the point-to-point half marathon course takes athletes from the shores of the Sayreville Lake to the heart of downtown Des Moines. We like to joke that no one in their right mind would conceive of such a course today. But 45 years ago, 375 runners joined in the first running of this route and started a tradition unlike anything else around. No 2 years are alike, so whether you're a first-timer or a third-generation DAM runner, this run is for everyone. Okay, well, that's some good PR. That makes me want to run it. I don't know that much about Iowa or Des Moines. I grew up in the state next door, Illinois, outside of Chicago. But if you go to the DAM to DSM website, you see a bunch of runners running by cornfields. So I love a good point-to-point race. Those are super fun. You hopefully get transportation to the start line and then just run down to the finish. But apparently this one does have a touch of elevation gain. Let's see, 69 meters of gain, which is 226 feet. The course is generally described as having rolling hills with more challenging hills in the first 6 to 9 miles. So when we think of Iowa, we really don't think of it as especially hilly. You know, it's a big corn state, but it sounds like there are a few hills in that one. So you will have to be prepared for that. Looks like there's a notable uphill section between miles 6 and 7.5. Okay. So that is what her race is all about. Have never heard of it before, but it sounds like it's a fun one. All right, back to Destinee. How long has Destinee been running? She says 10 years, but she's been training more seriously since January 2025, so about a year. Okay, great. She is American. She likes to use miles, of course. I asked about any recurring injuries that we need to think about, and she said an occasional issues with Achilles tenderness, for example, after a previous half marathon race, but nothing that has been significant. Okay. Occasional issues, occasional things that don't bother you might not be a big deal, but Achilles injuries are not anything to mess with. So I would definitely make sure that you're doing your strength training. You're doing some PT work for the Achilles. That could be calf raises. That could be eccentric calf drops. So what that means, you're kind of slowly lowering your heel off like a step or something like that. Achilles, I mean, like anything, get stronger with use, but with too much use, they can get weaker. We don't want to rupture an Achilles. So strength training is your best friend there. So you want to make sure that you are taking care of that. What are her recent race times? So I ask for your recent race times, and I mean recent in the past 6 to 12 months, so that I can set your paces. A race environment is a good snapshot of what your fitness is, especially if you had a good race. If you had a good race, you can't fake that. You can't do something you're not capable of, right? But if you had a bad race, or if it was hot, or if there's extenuating circumstances, that is not necessarily an indication of your fitness, but a good race always is. And Destinee said that in 1 mile, she has done that in 6:46. That translates to 4:12 per kilometer. 5K, she's done in 22:41. Half marathon in 1 hour, 49 minutes and 20 seconds. That was from September of 2025. And it was a 23-minute PR from the year before. That is great. A big PR like that, 23 minutes and a half, is huge. So she has definitely stepped up her training. She has definitely been doing something right. Will we see that kind of improvement for this half? You know, it's unlikely to continue making the same kinds of big jumps. Usually you make jumps that are bigger at the beginning, and your jumps get smaller and smaller as you get fitter and fitter. There's just less room for improvement, and you have to work harder for smaller levels of improvement, but you never know. You never know. How many miles does she run a week? She runs about 20 to 25 miles a week. That translates to 32 to 40 kilometers. So is that enough to train for a half marathon? I think that that is bare minimum. She's in January right now as she put this in, or maybe it was December when she put this in. So that is kind of okay for maintenance miles, but I would like to see that be a little bit higher, definitely in the 30s. Since she is in her 30s, she can likely handle some higher mileage, but we don't want to introduce that all at once. So she said that she has run 33 miles before, and that was October of 2025. That translates to 53 kilometers. So I think that is a healthier mileage in general for somebody doing a half marathon. I would like to see that higher if she's able to handle it. So I'm not going to give her anything too much higher than that, but I would like to start bumping that up. Probably not going to get her as high as 40 miles, but definitely want to get her in the mid 30s. That should be a good balance for her right now. But as she moves forward, if she is looking to do more, I would say that's a great place that we can help her improve, is to increase her mileage if possible. Let's look at the layout of her plan. When does she run? So we want to make sure that her running days are spread out in a thoughtful way, that she still has a life, but she is training optimally. Now, it depends on what her lifestyle is, what her job is, how everything works out, but you generally want to space out your running days. Most runners, most recreational runners run about 4 days a week. Some more, some less. I don't recommend running less than 3 days a week if you're trying to be competitive. And I don't recommend that you run more than 6 days a week. Most people land at about 4. Some people can go up to 5. And if you're really advanced, and that doesn't necessarily mean advanced in a fast way, it means that you have been running a long time and you can handle more mileage, then you can handle running more often. But it's just one of the levers of training is frequency. So your frequency will be different, but it looks like Destinee runs 4 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And that is perfect. Her long run is on a Sunday. So if you've been listening to me for a long time, you know that I like to have runners, especially in the half marathon and the marathon, run the day before their long run. So she is going to run long on Sunday, which means she'll have a shorter run on Saturday. This is perfect. All right, I'm going to take a little break right now, and I will be back with the rest of Destinee's schedule right after this.
I want to tell you about a unique opportunity for you to get stronger, faster, and stay motivated to hit your running and nutrition goals this year. And that is to join the PR team. I started it in 2022, and I have to tell you, it's even better than I imagined. Each member of the team gets a custom training plan made by me for you based on your unique fitness, goals, and lifestyle. Everything you need to achieve your running dreams is included, such as strength training, recovery, and even cross training if you want it. I include weekly mental strength training as well, and training tips and nutrition guides. But here's where it gets really cool. The group has its own page in the app where we share workouts, ask training questions, and get feedback from me and the other teammates. And each week, I create an exclusive private podcast just for the team based on the questions I get and what I see in their training each week. And what I usually end up doing is sharing behind the scenes and exclusive sneak peeks that I don't share anywhere else. So instead of joining some coaching Facebook group or sitting through another Zoom call, you get to listen to tailored advice on the run, and you don't have to do this all alone. When you're ready to take your running to the next level and join an amazing team of runners, head to theplantedrunner.com/group and join us today. It's more affordable than you think, and I can't wait to have you.
Welcome back to the PR Training Lab, getting back into it with Destinee. So she is going to be a Sunday runner. Let's take a look at how long her long run is right now. This will help me decide how to start her off as far as mileage and long run. So she says she recently has run a 16 mile, which is 25K, long run. Her average is about 10 miles, which is 16K. So little tiny disconnect here because she's running a 16-mile long run and she says she's only running 20 miles a week. So I hope that's not true because that would mean she's running 16 miles one day and 4 miles the rest of the week. That's not very balanced. Even if she is running 10-mile long run and she's only running 10 miles the rest of the week, that's not very balanced either. So you know, a lot of people say, oh, you should run, your long run should be 20% of your total weekly mileage. That's kind of a rule of thumb that gets thrown around. That's not necessarily true. That can be true for the elites or people who have high volume, really high mileage. But for other runners, that percentage is going to be a little more, but it definitely should not be 50%. So we definitely want you running a little bit more to be able to support a long run of that length. Now, for a half marathoner, do you need to be running 16 miles or 25K for a 21K race or a 13.1 mile race? Not necessarily. Okay. So the half marathon is a race where you can run over distance. So your long run can be longer than your actual race. That's actually okay with the half marathon, not okay with the marathon. But it's not necessary for everybody. It's more about time on your feet. So we already know that Destinee is a decently fast runner. So 16 miles is he's definitely going to take her less than 3 hours. So we don't need to worry about her long run getting any longer than that. I'm probably going to cap her off at 14, but maybe up to 16 max. What pace would you say is an easy effort, relaxed pace for an average run? This is a pace so slow that you could talk the entire time almost as easily as walking. What do you think she's going to say here? She said 9:30 per mile, and that translates to 5:54 per kilometer. Okay, I'm just going to call this out. This is way too fast. Okay. Easy is not a pace. So it is more about an effort. So if she is really or if she is really running 9:30 miles and she can talk as easily as I'm talking now, which as you can hear by my voice is not that easy, but you know what I mean? If she really is in an aerobic zone at 9:30, I'm going to say that she's not. I'm going to call her out because I think that her pace should be 10:10 to 11:10 per mile, which translates to 6:20 to almost 7 per kilometer. Okay. So she's going way too fast. I want her to slow that down by about 40 seconds per mile. And I always get pushed back on this, but this is one of the most important parts of training is to really slow down your long runs so that they are good for recovery. So you don't need recovery from your recovery days. But maybe even more important than that, it's the proper zone to use the most oxygen. It's the best way to get your aerobic development. If you go too fast, you start switching over into more of an anaerobic type zone. You start switching over into systems that you're not trying to develop. You're working too hard for the goal and you're kind of missing the boat. So definitely slow those down by at least 40 seconds per mile. Looking at the rest of her schedule, we're going to have speed days, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and she's going to have a rest day on Monday. That works great. I always ask my clients if there's non-negotiables when it comes to training. If you can't run on Sundays or you work on Wednesdays or whatever it is there something that we need to work around? Be sure to let me know because I can make things happen for you. If, move your schedule around so it suits your life. We want training to suit our life, not the other way around. So we can make changes that might not look like they're ideal, but they're ideal if they fit your schedule, right? So she wrote, Saturdays and Sundays are for sure run days. Tuesday through Friday are flexible, but Thursdays and Fridays are usually easier to run than Tuesdays and Wednesdays because I work from home. Okay, so that is all fine. So we are having her run Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So that looks like that fits with her schedule just fine. So we don't need to do anything special for her for that. What are her favorite kinds of running workouts? She says all kinds. It's been new to me this year and I've enjoyed them all so far. Well, that is great because you always want to be doing a variety of workouts, especially when you're in between phases or you're at the beginning of a training phase. You really want to do what I call kitchen sink type workouts. I throw everything at you. You want to do some fast stuff. You want to do some slow stuff. You want to do some stamina stuff. This makes you a more well-rounded runner and you can develop all your systems. It's never going to be equal, but they'll be kind of balanced because when you get into whatever it is that you're focusing on, you will very intentionally be unbalanced. For a marathoner or a half marathoner, you will be very much focused on endurance and stamina. You'll be less focused on the more sprinty stuff like the O2 max, short sprints, those kind of things. But those are still very important, especially when you're not focused on the marathon or the half marathon. They're really important for your total development as an athlete and as a runner. So you do want to focus on those things when you are out of the cycle or at the beginning of the cycle. So if you enjoy them all, that's perfect. I'm going to take another quick break here, but I will be right back with more of Destinee and how I'm going to make her schedule for this iconic Iowa race.
The Planet Runner is sponsored by Liquid IV. Story time. When I first started running, I just went out and ran until I had to stop. Then I walked home. No fueling, no hydration, no plan at all. It actually kind of worked, but I was out there a long time until I finally figured out there's a better way to train. And it turns out there's a better way to hydrate than just water. Rehydrate with Liquid IV's Energy Multiplier, sugar-free hydrating energy. It's scientifically formulated to support physical energy, hydration, focus, mood, and social stamina, so it's perfect when you need a little boost on the run. Just one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates better than water alone. Powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. Rehydrate better with better hydration and energy from Liquid IV, zero sugar and zero crash. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code PLANTED at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code PLANTED at liquidiv.com.
And we're back with the PR Training Lab and Destinee. We want to know a little bit more about what are her least favorite kinds of running workouts. What does she struggle with? She says, easy pace when I'm on my own. Okay, now it's starting to make sense. She said that she was running 930 miles, and now I know why. She says she usually runs with a slower paced running buddy to chat, or my wife will bike alongside me. Okay, perfect. This is a great way to slow down if you have a slower friend. As long as you are not making the slow friend run too fast, if you are both chatting the whole time, that is perfect. If your spouse can bike alongside you, that is love. I want one of those. But if they can talk to you the whole time, and more importantly, you can talk back, that is a great way to do it. Another way to keep easy is to listen to a podcast like this one. Don't listen to fast music because that kind of pumps you up. Listen to slow music. Some people run with a metronome to keep themselves slow. There's lots of little tricks, but it's really one of the most important things that you can do for your running if you are trying to boost your aerobic development. I know it's like beating a dead horse. I talk about this all the time, but there's a reason I talk about it is because it really is that important. What kind of non-running physical activities, cross-training do you do each week? And she says, strength training occasionally, but not consistent. Okay. I enjoy it, but I don't necessarily look forward to it. I prefer it to running. So it tends to get put on the back burner. Okay. Well, if you don't love strength training, do it anyway. It's kind of like eating your vegetables. If you aren't used to it, you're not going to like it. Little kids don't like vegetables, but when their parents keep giving them vegetables, eventually they learn to enjoy them. Any parent knows this to be true. My kids love vegetables now because I fought my battles when they were young. This is not about parenting advice, but it is a similar concept. If you expose yourself to strength training over and over and over again, stop worrying if you like it or not. Go ahead and not like it if you want. I don't care about your feelings here. You can think of strength training as a necessary evil. You can think of it like brushing your teeth. It is more important than getting in all your miles. And even if you weren't trying to be an endurance athlete, if you weren't in love with running, strength training is so important for your whole life. It is so important for health, longevity. You're training in your 30s now to be able to do stuff in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I cannot stress it enough. Strength training's not optional if you want to live a great, long, healthy life. It is also not optional if you want to be the best athlete you can be. You are selling yourself short if you don't do strength training. And I'm not even talking about very much. You literally, maybe 60 minutes a week is the bare minimum. So 20 minutes 3 times a week, I would say, is more than so many runners. And if you're doing it right, you really will get the benefits. So all of my clients everybody who gets a custom training plan from me, they get strength training included, and it's all things that you can do at home with minimal equipment, but it's even better if you can go to the gym and get some really heavy equipment if you don't have that kind of thing at home. So strength training is non-negotiable. You don't have to look forward to it. You don't have to prefer it to running. Just take your medicine and eat your vegetables, right? What are your biggest struggles with nutrition? She says, I just started taking fueling seriously for running this past year, and it has been a game changer. Hallelujah. But I'm still new, and fueling mid-run is not fully a habit yet. Okay, well, that is a habit that you can practice. So I recently did a fueling episode. So if you're looking to increase your fueling or learn more about fueling, definitely check that episode out. But yeah, fueling mid-run is something that you're going to have to learn to do. Any run longer than 60 minutes or any run of high intensity that's longer than about 45 minutes is something that you'll want to make sure you are fueling mid-run. What are your biggest struggles mentally when it comes to success and performance? Destinee says she is a recovering perfectionist, my own worst critic, and I tend to push my goals farther and farther out when I get close to one, rather than letting myself meet and celebrate hitting the goal. This is all really good stuff. So if you listen to the Planet Runner podcast often, you know that I do a mental strength minute at the end of every show, except for these type of shows, of course. But the mental side of the sport is incredibly important. Everybody gets mental strength training as part of their plan with me, whether it's on the PR team or whether you're just getting a custom training plan. So being your own worst critic, that is very, very common. And we can use some self-talk retraining that can help with that. Celebrating your wins is kind of a really important thing in life. I think I heard a quote recently, if you want more good things in life, start noticing the good things in life. And that is really simple, but really profound at the same time. Is you can have everything you want because you already have it, right? You know, if you're not finding the good, you're not looking for the good. So pushing her goals farther and farther out, well, she's already signed up for this one, so this goal's coming. And being a perfectionist, I think, is something that a lot of runners share. I think that is a classic trait of runners, is we tend to be attracted to running because it's kind of a pass-fail thing. You're either faster than you were before or you're not. And the numbers don't lie, and they're right there, whether you pass or fail. So, you know, it's you either do it or you don't do it. And that's actually kind of a false scenario. There's a lot of things in running that are not tied to the numbers. And the paradox, or one of many paradoxes in running, is that there's no such thing as perfect, and good enough is actually better than being perfect. You know, if you're always trying to be perfect in your running, you won't be. And if you're trying to be kind of like a B+ student, that's the best way to succeed. You know, showing up is more important than trying to be perfect and failing, or trying to be perfect and skipping because you can't be perfect. So that is something that a lot of us work through in their running. So I applaud Destinee for admitting it and talking about it, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. What is Destinee hoping to learn or gain this training cycle? She says consistency with strength and mobility. Hallelujah. And to continue to improve in speed and fueling. I think these are great goals. I like that she doesn't necessarily have a time goal. She has these nice process goals, because this is something she can control. She can control how many times she strength trains. She can't necessarily control how fast she's going to run in Iowa, right? But she definitely can control how often she strength trains. You know, she definitely can control whether she fuels on a run or not. So I love this type of goal, because this is like a no-brainer kind of goal. She's going to win if she commits to these process goals, which is fabulous. And then she'll probably get her time goals or her results goals as a secondary benefit to focusing on process goals. So I love that. Anything else you'd like to share that would be helpful to your success? She says, 2026 will be a big year for me with my 5th and 6th half marathons and my very first full marathon in October 2026. Yay! Well, that is super exciting, Destinee. And I hope after this, you let me write your plans for the other races you have this fall and I guess later on in the year. First full marathon is always super exciting. And it sounds like she's doing it right, starting at the half, getting good at some half marathons before graduating to the full. Very few people do that. I didn't really do that. I mean, I did a couple halves first, but then I just fell head first into the marathon rabbit hole, like most people do. But it's probably smarter to do it the way Destinee is doing it, getting good at the half first before moving on to the full. So I like that. And she also says, the Planted Runner podcast has been instrumental in my growth as a runner this past year, and I truly appreciate it and you. Oh, that feels so good, Destinee. I know that my work is helpful, but it sometimes feels like I am speaking into a microphone that goes nowhere. But it is so deeply rewarding to hear sweet comments like that, to know that my work is meaningful and helpful to people. And if my work is meaningful and helpful to you, please, the biggest thing you could do as a thank you, even if you never buy anything from me ever, is just to write a podcast review. I haven't had a big flood of podcast reviews in a long time. And so I'd love to see a few from this show. So head to Apple. You don't even need to, you can be an Android person and set up an Apple account. You really can. And you can write a podcast review. Spotify works too, but I see Apple making more of a difference in the reach of the show. So write them both places. That would be amazing. And if you would like to win a free training plan, just like Destinee created live on this show, as I said, go write that Apple review and then head to theplantedrunner.com/PRLab. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcast Network. Don't forget that you can enter to win a free custom training plan for your next race and get featured on the show. Just write an Apple Podcast review and enter at theplantedrunner.com/PRLab. Of course, reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next because I read every single one. Have a great run today.